Okay, I want to tell y'all a story, but first I must tell y'all another story. So bear with me. The Alabama legislature is planning to ban cultivated meat, lab-grown meat created from cells without the need for raising and slaughtering an animal. It's received FDA approval, but Alabama will make it a felony to produce, sell, or distribute the product in the state. And that sounds to me, that sounds like government overreach from the same exact people who lost their minds when it came to gas stoves, sugary drinks, or whatever the buzzword of the day was. If this was reversed, conservatives will be protesting and boycotting and yelling about how the government can't tell them what to eat. Besides, they say, it's not even real meat. Okay, I tell y'all that story to tell you this one. The Alabama Supreme Court has ruled that frozen embryos are human life, are children. Meat grown in a lab isn't meat, but embryos in a lab are children. And this ruling stems from a lawsuit brought by 3 families whose frozen embryos were accidentally destroyed by an employee at an IVF clinic. They sued for wrongful death, and the medical center claimed that they couldn't do that because Alabama's wrongful death of a minor act does not cover embryos outside of the womb. The wrongful death act of a minor is that one that says if you kill somebody pregnant, you actually kill 2 people. But the state Supreme Court said, oh, yeah, well, hold my Bible and listen to this. The wrongful death act, I'm going to read it. The wrongful death act of a minor applies to all unborn children, regardless of their location, wrote Alabama Supreme Court Justice J. Mitchell. The wrongful death of a minor act is sweeping and unqualified. It applies to all children, born and unborn, without limitation. It is not the role of this court to craft a new limitation based on our own view of what is or is not wise public policy. That is especially true where, as here, the people of this state have adopted a constitutional amendment directly aimed at stopping courts from excluding unborn life from legal protection. Then the Supreme Court said, hey, give me back my Bible so I can explain why we are classifying these single-cell fertilized eggs as children. We believe that each human being from the moment of conception is made in the image of God, created by him to reflect his likeness. It is as if the people of Alabama took what was spoken of the prophet Jeremiah and applied it to every unborn person in the state. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I sanctified you. Jeremiah 1:5. So much for that whole separation of church and state, am I right? This is dangerous, folks. Look, I'm truly sorry. I truly hate it for those families that lost those frozen embryos. But this ruling is downright motherfucking dangerous. Dangerous, unprecedented, but unfortunately unsurprising, given the way conservatives have been fighting to turn this country into a theocracy. I mean, IVF is a grueling process. I mean, you got hormone stimulation, egg retrieval, creation of embryos, and finally implanting embryos. And each step along the way has multiple steps. Not to mention the time invested, the money invested, the hope lost. Not all implantations take. In the creation of embryos, many of them don't survive the process. And mostly for natural causes, but others for unknown reasons. It will be impossible for doctors in Alabama to successfully run an IVF clinic without constant fear of a wrongful death lawsuit, thanks to the pro-life Alabama Supreme Court and an out-of-context Bible verse. Alabama is now so pro-life that eager, anxious would-be parents might not be able to have babies. When a couple has a child after IVF treatments and discards their leftover embryos, are they guilty of mass murder? What about the clinic staff? Are hopeful parents seeking such treatments on the hook to keep their unused frozen embryos forever? What happens if they can't pay the thousands of dollars a year to keep them frozen? Is the clinic responsible? Is the state? Maybe the most simple question is the one we needed answered first. What the fuck? Oh, I mentioned theocracy earlier, theology. Let me read another part of the concurring opinion that the Alabama Chief Justice, Tom Parker, wrote. And no, I'm not talking about Tom Parker, the Elvis guy. But at least this Tom Parker, at least he's at least he's honest in admitting a theology fetish. He wrote, in summary, the theologically based view of the sanctity of life adopted by the people of Alabama encompasses the following. God made every person in his image. Each person, therefore, has a value that far exceeds the ability of human beings to calculate. And human life cannot be wrongfully destroyed without incurring the wrath of a holy God who views the destruction of his image as an affront to himself. Once again, what the fuck? We knew this was going to happen. Once Roe v. Wade was overturned, we knew, no matter what they said, we knew. We knew without a shadow of doubt, we knew that Roe falling was not the end. It was only the beginning. The start of the pro-life movement doing their due diligence to slowly but surely turn the state into a Christian nationalist wet dream version of Gilead. Blessed be the fruit. Handmaid's Tale is supposed to be a dystopian nightmare story, not a fucking blueprint. Alabama banned abortion as soon as the sperm tells the egg, "What's up, big head?" But don't worry, the Alabama government said, don't worry, ladies. This is just to go after abortion providers. Listen, ladies, we know we took bodily autonomy away from you, but don't fret, sunshine. We won't punish you. We will just punish the doctor. We will just make it to where the doctors are so scared of prosecution that even in a life or death situation, they'll be hesitant to perform necessary medical procedures because, we're so pro-life. Ladies, you have nothing to worry about. We knew that was bullshit. We knew once the boot goes on the neck, pressure won't decrease. It will only increase under the guise of pro-life by the party of small government and freedom. So we watched as our Attorney General, Steve Marshall, said that any woman could leave the state for an abortion. If you don't like the laws here, you can go to another state to kill your baby. As long as you can afford it. But if you can't afford it, if she can't afford it, and someone gives her gas money, if someone drives her or rides with her to keep her company, if someone else made the appointment, if someone Googled info on the clinic, if she had any help at all, then that is a conspiracy and a felony, and all will be charged. We watched all that and said, told you so. We said they won't stop there. There'll be more coming. Other people said, no, it'll never happen. When the Alabama abortion law was enacted after Roe v. Wade was overturned, someone asked a pro-life lawmaker where this would lead, and I cannot remember the lawmaker's name. And I tried to Google it, and everything was just so caught up in this subject, I could not find it. But someone asked the lawmaker, could the abortion ban lead to IVF being under attack? And the lawmaker said, oh, no, you ain't got to worry about that. I mean, those fetuses aren't in a pregnant person. And now this. Doctors typically remove and fertilize several eggs before implanting the ones with the best chance of growing into a healthy fetus. And now those leftover embryos that were determined to not have a good chance of growing into a healthy fetus are considered fucking human life. Considered children. Anti-choice advocates have always argued that fetuses were people. And now you don't even need that. Embryos are people. So if you have multiple embryos left over, you've got more lives. You've got to care for, you pay for storage, paying for self-storage for children according to the state Supreme Court. This ruling will require such embryos to remain in cryogenic storage even after the couple who underwent the IVF treatment have died, and possibly after their children have died, and after their grandchildren have died, and possibly even after their great-grandchildren have died. Make it make fucking sense. Can you claim these embryos as dependents? Why not? It's a life you're required to take care of or face murder charges. Embryos are used in stem cell research. What does this ruling do for that? IVF takes more embryos than needed to give the couple the best chance of a healthy fetus and a baby. Some donate those leftover embryos to science with the hope of helping cure diseases and save lives. That sounds pro-life to me. Pro-life advocates don't want to do what they can to actually save lives. because of an embryo that is the size of a period on a piece of paper. Speaking of periods, it's estimated 15% of fertilized eggs don't implant and end up passing during a woman's menstrual cycle. In Alabama, embryos and fertilized eggs are children, even if not implanted. That means that having a period in Alabama is murder. And the ramifications have already started. Once a boulder starts rolling downhill, it does nothing but pick up steam and wreck anything and everything in its way. It's a Pandora's box of what the fuckness. UAB, the state's largest hospital system, announced they will pause IVF while officials evaluate potential legal consequences in the wake of the Supreme Court ruling. We must evaluate the potential that our patients and our physicians could be prosecuted criminally or face punitive damages for following the standard of care for IVF treatment, a spokesperson for the hospital said. She said patients can continue the process up through egg retrieval, but fertilization and embryo development is paused for now. Because the Petri dish is a life. Because the Petri dish could bring murder charges. Because scrambled eggs are scrambled chickens, apparently now in Alabama. That's where we are now. Strange fucking times indeed. Alabama is a pro-life state, yet conservatives say that we are a pro-life state, but we refuse to expand Medicaid. We turn down federal funds to help feed hungry children. Alabama is so pro-life, we are willing to force children to have children, but we won't worry about feeding those children we force children to have, or feed the child that we forced to have a child. We are so pro-life that rape and incest victims are forced to give birth to their rapist baby. So pro-life, we tell them the only way to get over their trauma is to give birth to the result of that trauma. So pro-life that doctors are scared to do their job if the mother's life is in danger for fear of prosecution. Ectopic pregnancy, that's just a word the liberals made up. So pro-life, we will force a mother to carry a dead fetus to term. And now Alabama is so pro-life that families desperate to have children are losing one of their only hopes to achieve that. Where does it end? Seriously, where the fuck does it end? If a speck in a Petri dish is a life, where the fuck do we go from here? What's next? Murder charges for all those crusty-ass socks under dudes' beds? Nah, that'd never happen. That would punish men. And we all know that the only thing conservatives want to control is a uterus. Strange times. Pitiful, terrifying, sad, strange times indeed.